Karrion Kross's loss to Jeff Hardy on Raw has already had some quite far-reaching consequences. For example, NXT has had to be edited to hide Jeff Hardy chants. But we might be looking at a real smacking down of Triple H. And yes, I chose my words wisely there. We all saw what happened with Karrion Kross on Raw. Thank you very much for the subscription, Curse-Wine. Appreciate that, mate. After being undefeated since his NXT debut and only becoming the two-time NXT champion because of his injury, Karrion Kross appeared on Raw and lost in less than 2 minutes to Jeff Hardy. Now the intention there, with the return of No More Words, was to put Jeff Hardy over in the beginning of a desperate push to not let him go. They are throwing everything at this guy to try and keep him, and hopefully they do, because I'm not sure what else he can do. I feel if he wrestled anywhere else, he will break his back in two. Admittedly, he'll be happy to do that, but WWE at least don't let him wrestle enough to actually do that. However, there was also a clear intention of making sure that NXT was effectively put in its place. There's been a number of reports out about this recently, primarily on Twitter, mostly on paywalls, so I admit, I haven't read too much of those. I won't refer to them because of that, and only go off what I know personally. There is a lot of talk backstage in the WWE regarding Samoa Joe. I've mentioned this previously. Higher ups on the main roster and in general planning are, to be as polite as possible, really quite pissed off at Triple H for essentially undercutting them by bringing Samoa Joe back to the company when he was released due to having too high an effect on the budget, and of course because he was actively injured at the time. The day that the release of Samoa Joe happened, I came live on this Twitch and indeed on YouTube as well, and spoke about the fact that Samoa Joe was still injured. He was pushing to start wrestling again, and essentially he voiced the opinion that maybe I'll just go, and was told you're no longer required on the back of that. The WWE main roster doctors simply weren't willing to clear him at the time. Now I went into detail just before Samoa Joe did return. The video is on YouTube, I believe, on the day he returned a couple of hours ahead. Triple H, as I've reported on this channel, promised Samoa Joe that he would be cleared. He promised that he would talk to the medical team and make it happen. He promised that it would only ever be a matter of time. Now this has already been proven true. This is a show called Spoiler Warning, so spoiler warning guys, Samoa Joe will be wrestling Karrion Kross at NXT TakeOver the day after SummerSlam. So he's returning. Samoa Joe has been confirmed as an active NXT wrestler and will be competing for NXT late next month. Triple H made the promise and it has now come true. But that doesn't mean the people backstage are not pissed off with him. Now when we hear that the WWE are viewing NXT as a developmental brand, this is partly to do with it. Less than a year ago, NXT was being viewed as the fastest growing brand in the WWE. A month or so ago, I was told that NXT were pushing hard to be a part of Survivor Series, with Reigns vs Lashley vs Kross being heavily pitched as the main event. What's changed? I do have some comments that I will be sharing on the stream that I cannot upload to YouTube, so I'll save them to the end. It's from an interview that I conducted with Triple H a couple of years ago. To put it simply, the change from Wednesday nights to Tuesday nights was the beginning of the end for Vince McMahon's focus on the yellow and gold brand. While he was quotably never threatened by AEW, McMahon was apparently very disappointed that NXT was not able to compete at a high level against AEW, even with people coming down to NXT from the main roster, for example Sasha Banks. The move to Tuesday resulted in the end of Vince's attention, and with call-ups coming, I've been saying here for a number of months that upcoming call-ups from NXT were being done without any concern to NXT storylines. You look at what happened to Karrion Kross. Tell me that does not prove that point. Karrion Kross's loss was a warning sent to Triple H and to NXT in general. Kross's segment in the NXT tapings even had to be recorded again to mask the presence of Jeff Hardy chants. In the next few months, NXT will be gutted, which has already started. Tegan Nox, Shotzi Blackheart, Toni Storm, Finn Balor and Karrion Kross have already made appearances on the main roster, and we're not even at the draft yet, with names such as Bronson Reed and Scarlett soon to follow. The biggest threat to NXT right now is the WWE. I'm going to check in with your comments and catch up, and then after that I am going to play the clip from an interview between myself and Triple H after, I think it was after NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. that I did that one, so I'll play that. I asked him the question about NXT being a developmental brand. So I think now's the time to check in on that. Para says, didn't they refilm a segment for the recent NXT? Indeed, it was about Jeff Hardy. See, I believe it's still a good push for Karrion as well to go straight to the main roster into a feud with Hardy. If that happens, I get what you're saying. But, I don't know, it doesn't feel that way to me. I could be wrong, but I feel Jeff Hardy from here goes a little bit higher. My suspicion is that we are getting Jeff Hardy versus The Fiend at SummerSlam, but that's just my personal opinion. And we've had very conflicting reports recently about The Fiend. Very conflicting reports. Para says, I'm hyped for Joe versus Karrion. A takeover is going to be a hell of a match. Indeed it is. Sean says, is Samoa Joe beating Karrion Kross for the title? I believe he will, even if I knew for a fact I wouldn't share it, but I don't know. Nick says, Jeff's got some juice left, but I think it's time for him to pass the torch and push someone he likes. That may be The Fiend. Welcome, Conrad. Glad to see you, mate. And Para says, Jeff has said that he wants one last run in WWE before he retires. I think this might be it. I really do. That guy is battered. Mostly through his own doing, but that guy is battered. Kerswine says, is that the same show as Volta versus Dragunov 2? Yes, it is. Those matches will both be taking place at TakeOver the day after SummerSlam. So, looks like we're going to have a hell of a weekend, I'll tell you that.